Welcome to the Iron Self podcast, where we jump into health, fitness, mindset, and becoming the best version of yourself. Today with your hosts, Mike and Kayla Minion. Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to the Iron Self podcast. Today with your hosts,
Kayla
and Mike. How are you guys doing today? Thought I'd have a little bit of fun there.
So today we are talking about strength results and moving our body. Last week we talked about nutrition results and fueling our body. So let's kind of jump into this because this is really a 3-part series that we want to give you guys the most information and the best information that we can.
So if you remember from last week, the answer for, what is the best nutrition is it depends. So today we are talking about strength, getting results with our strength, and just moving our bodies in general. So I want to start with movement in general, because to say that we're going to start with strength and everybody should be resistance training and everybody should be lifting heavy ass weights, I mean, I'm behind that 100%, but the reality is that a lot of people are at a point in their, I'll call it their fitness journey, where maybe lifting weights isn't the best place to start because maybe you've been spending a lot of time sedentary throughout your life. So moving your body is where we start. So this is something that we talk about with pretty much anybody that we start training with. If you have not been moving your body outside of like me going to my car, getting in my car, getting back out of my car and going to sit at my desk, if you live a very sedentary life, then movement for you means quite literally starting to move your joints more, because we need to start getting your body used to the idea that, okay, we're going to do some movement here and this is going to feel different. We're going to be challenging things that we haven't been using, because generally when we sit on our asses all day, our hip flexors get super tight. So you're getting part of what we are looking for in your body, but you're sitting there sedentary. So then it just starts to lock up, right? So starting to get general movement back in means going for walks. It means going for bike rides. It means increasing your daily movement to begin with.
Yeah, I like to say it's like, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to add into your life or your lifestyle in regards to movement? Because yes, maybe we're coming from a sedentary place. Maybe we're coming from an injury. Maybe we're coming from like mentally, I've never done this before, or maybe I want to do it and I have done it before, but I know it's hard. Like all of these different things kind of compile. So the best place for where I always suggest to start is, what are you willing to do? Once you decide on what you're willing to do, what you enjoy doing, and you start doing that, you can always build on that. But you have to start somewhere. You have to have a foundation. You have to have the bottom of the barrel, the groundbreaking point in order to build further and in order to adapt it into more. I mean, when I got into physical activity after my car accident, I didn't just go from like, not really ever working out or having zero nutrition and exercise knowledge to I was, benching my PRs or anything like that. Like, it was a progression.
Good news, when you're starting,
time.
Everything's a PR.
That's true. But it was a progression over time. And so I want you to think about it as, what is this progression over time? What does this look like long term? We always say to our clients, this is a lifestyle thing. This isn't a, one and done thing. You're not just doing this for a short period of time. So what is it that you enjoy doing? What do you want to have in your life? Like, if you don't enjoy lifting weights, but you love doing Zumba, then do that. Like
Zumba.
If you love yoga but you don't love running, then do that. Like, what is it that you enjoy doing? Because the things that you enjoy are willing to stick into your life.
Yeah, perfect. So the big thing that stood out for me there that you said was progressive overload, right? The whole idea behind strength training in general is the idea of progressive overload, which means that we challenge our body more from week to week, from day to day, creating an increased demand on your musculature, which helps our musculature grow.
That adaptation.
Right? That is that muscular adaptation. So the reason I want to start with that is just because if you already walk every day, if you walk 7 days a week because you have a dog or you have kids or whatever it is, because it's healthy and you've been walking, that's great. So that means to increase from where you are, your baseline is already that exact same walk in the exact same pattern that you already do it. So same time, same amount of
frequency, intensity, time, and type, our FIT principle.
Yeah. So but all I'm saying is that if you keep doing the same thing, you won't see any adaptations. Your muscles aren't challenged more, so you don't have to grow bigger muscles to overcome that.
We call that poster worker effect.
Exactly. So now if you want to progress yourself and all you're willing to do is continue to walk right now, maybe that means we're increasing the duration of our walk. Maybe that means we're increasing the intensity at which we are walking. Now we're starting to power walk a little bit. Maybe we are doing it in interval style where we jog for a little bit and then we walk for a little bit and then we jog for a little bit and then we walk for a little bit. The idea is to create more of a challenge to keep our body progressing.
Yeah, you could change the elevation gains that you're doing. So maybe you take a different route. Maybe you add some load onto your back. So maybe now you're carrying a kiddo on your back, or you're carrying your water in a backpack or something like that, where it's an increase in demand. Either way, we have to change the mechanism. So the idea of poster worker effect is that these poster workers can walk kilometers and kilometers every single day, and they don't get fitter and fitter. I mean, they're going to see a change right off the bat, but eventually their body just adapts to that demand. And so in order to get more, like Mike already said, you have to change the mechanism. So in personal training, we have something called the FIT principle. Frequency, intensity, time, and type is what it stands for. You either need to change the frequency, the intensity, the time, or the type of exercise that you're doing in order to start to change the adaptation that our body gets from it, right? If you only ever do yoga, your body will only ever adapt to what it needs to for yoga and never any further, right? If you want to see more strength gains, then you have to change the type of yoga or the balancing or all those other kind of things that kind of come into play there. So it doesn't matter what the exercise is, the FIT principle comes into play in regards to changing that mechanism for progressive overload over time. Now, in the gym, when we look at progressive overload, we're thinking, how can I increase the amount of sets, the amount of reps, the amount of weight, those kinds of things. That still comes back to the FIT principle.
Yeah, no, exactly. So then I guess the big questions start to come is, when we are looking at the gym now, let's take a step away from general movement, which is like your walking, your yoga, your whatever that might be, playing sports with the kids, whatever it is. But starting to step into a gym setting now, and now we're actually looking at appreciable gains for strength, I think, right?
So then in a gym setting, I think that when we're looking at lifting, we have kind of 4 different categories. We've got our strength trainers, our power lifters, our aesthetically pleasing people that are really just looking to try and tighten and tone is the way I'm going to say that. And then our exercisers for health. They're coming in for general health principles because
Mobility.
They've been told by a doctor that they need to exercise for health. They've been told by themselves that they need to exercise for health.
They might be recovering from an injury. They might be recovering from surgery. They could be, there's a ton of reasons why someone comes in for general health purposes, all of which are even and great.
Bone density.
As we age, right?
So many, I think
let's play that caveat for 1 second here. Bone density, everybody over the age of 30 that is listening right now, you should be taking a calcium supplement, because after the age of 30, we lose more bone than we can produce naturally with what we have inside of us. So, calcium supplement to help you start to retain some of that bone, right? Bone density too. And then also on top of that, the only way to actually increase your bone density and keep it is resistance training,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't matter if you're doing it with bands or with weights, or if you're just, again, creating more of that demand on our body, even just using body weight. Resistance training is the only way for you, me, and anybody else over the age of 30 to actually gain and keep our bone density. So anybody that suffers with osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, guess what you should be doing? Lifting fucking weights.
Well, even if you don't suffer from those, maybe they run in your family, or maybe it's just something that you want to stave off long term.
Get ahead of the curve, yeah.
So, because it's harder to play catch up. Like, I've got a couple clients right now that are dealing with bone density issues, and when you look at that, they're trying to keep the bone density that they currently have. It's not about gaining it, because it's really, really difficult, especially for females post-menopause, to gain more bone density. Mm-hmm. So now we're looking at how do we maintain what we currently have, and retain it, because it's really, really hard to get it again. So that's really the what I wanted to add to that. Yep. Let's just keep going with health, since we're already on health. We might as well keep going with general health. What does strength training for general health look like?
So strength training for general health can be anything that, like, here's the thing. It doesn't have to be this big, complicated complex system to do. Train your core lifts, whatever those core lifts are for yourself, depending on your body type, depending on your mobility. I mean, I'm not going to tell somebody that's 70 years old to start back squatting today because maybe they don't have that mobility. Maybe they're a little bit kyphotic, right? Maybe they round through the shoulders, so it's hard to get that barbell on the back. There's tons of reasons why different exercises work for different people. But the idea for lifting for general health is to, again, just continually challenge your body. So maybe you're doing lighter weights with higher reps because you just want to stay in that endurance realm. That's totally cool. But you still need to progress those weights. So again, it's going to be bringing your weights up safely while keeping good form and then challenging yourself with those repetition ranges.
Excellent. I mean, if we look at what the government recommends for recommended movement just for general health, they're talking about 30 minutes of moderate intensity strength training.
Moderate to vigorous.
5 times a week. 30 minutes 5 times a week. Most people are not getting that. So like 30 minutes a day, that's Monday through Friday, if you think about it. Now, if you want more outside of just general health.
Now you want gains.
Now you have to exercise more than 30 minutes 5 times a week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could break your 30-minute 5 times a week into 2.5 days, I guess, of workouts, right? Because you do an hour and a half hour. Like you get that. But I always tell people I would start with 3 days a week. 3 days at 45 to 55 minutes, I think is a really great place to start because most people can't dedicate 30 minutes a day. Like they just won't work it into their schedule. But if I said you only had to dedicate 3 days, it feels a little bit more achievable.
Yeah. So the reality is if you only have 30 minutes, then we're not going to say don't do it. It's not worth your time for only a 30-minute workout. Still getting that movement in is one, especially if you're going for health. It's so important to get that movement in. So we're not saying, huge caveat here, we are not saying if you only have a half hour, don't work out. We're saying be smart about your time. So if these half hours feel like they become a little bit too cumbersome with all 5 days worth of them, this is what Kayla's saying. Then maybe we look at those 45 to 50-minute workouts and we do them less frequently, okay? And then we just pick up on the days where we're not doing those workouts and we go for a walk. We do some general movement again, some GPP. So being able to move our bodies through that healthy range of motion keeps us moving, right? So the idea here, if you're doing it for health, is moving through a full range of motion. Partial reps, half reps aren't going to help you. If we're doing this for general health, we want the mobility. We want the ability to move our body through this full plane of motion in a healthy, safe way. So doing half reps are going to be counterproductive at this point. Do it with fucking body weight. Do it with no weights at all, just learning the movements and moving through that full range of motion so your body understands which muscles are required to move you through that full range of motion. This is how we keep injuries at bay as we get older. This is how we can continue to play with our kids. This is how we can go and play our rec leagues and not hurt ourselves, is when our body knows how to move through that full range of motion.
Okay, so because you're already on this, and I want to make sure that this gets touched on, when we talk about full range of motion, we talk about whatever is a safe full range of motion for you. So when we are looking at any kind of exercise whatsoever, you want to make sure that your form is correct first and that you're understanding the muscles that are being used or worked. So I'm not telling you that you need to know that your glutes do extension of the hips, but what I am saying is that you need to know that in a squat, my prime mover is my quads. It's not my glutes. I'm not doing this squat motion specifically to build my glutes. My squat is primarily for my quads. So if I'm doing it to feel it in my glutes and I'm feeling it only in my quads, then I'm not getting the benefit of this. That's not true. Your glutes are a successor. They're working along with the quads, but they are not the primary mover. So
they're secondary.
They're
right?
secondary. So we want to make sure that you're feeling the right muscles for the right exercise. We're moving through a safe range of motion for you. Maybe you can't do an ass to the grass squat, but maybe you can go to 90 or parallel or to sit into a chair, but you're working on whatever your full range of motion is right now, because over time that progresses. Over time, the muscles get stronger, your body learns the mechanism and how to move, and then you become able to go a little deeper. You become able to do this with better form, but form must come first, especially with general health. But in any kind of patterning whatsoever, you're going to hear me say form first, no matter what. So for general health, we want to move through most body parts on a full range of motion. So
Your full range of motion.
when we're looking at this, you want to talk about your big muscle groups. So we want to talk about our lats, so our big back muscles. We want to talk about our chest, our legs, our bum. And those are like the primary ones. And then getting some form of cardiovascular training in there just to keep up with that conditioning long term. But we're going to do a whole episode on cardio. I just wanted to add that in. For general health, we need to have those things.
Yeah. So with strength and moving our bodies, it does, like Kayla was just saying, the cardio is super important too. Again, we're doing a full episode on cardio. I think it's next week, but just so you guys know, cardio will keep the heart and the lungs going for you, which is what we love, right? Brings that blood pressure down. Super important stuff.
Okay, so lifting for strength, specifically for strength. So there is some rep ranges that you want to look at when you are lifting for strength.
Now, if we are talking about sheer limit strength, like I want to be able to push this bar one time, right?
No, we're not talking about power.
Well, this is limit strength is strength.
Okay.
Strength is the ability to move something through space without any time restriction. Power is where we put in the time restriction.
Go ahead.
So if we are talking about pure strength, raw strength, lower reps, higher weight, right? So this is how we train to bring that up. Now there's different techniques to help bring that up, and there's different techniques for when we do plateau, because it doesn't matter how friggin' strong you are. For someone like myself, for someone like Kayla, you will hit a weight where you're like, holy shit, this isn't moving, right? And that's totally natural, and everybody freaks out and they're like, I was progressing all my big lifts and then all of a sudden I can't progress anymore. This is called fatigue. This is what happens when we train the same muscle groups over and over and over and over. This is why we switch our workouts. This is why we take our deload weeks. This is why we start to give ourselves those opportunities to rest. But then there's also different ways that we can kind of schedule ourselves to build those single reps, those higher reps up. Pyramid sets are great for that. So again, starting with a little bit lower weights with higher reps, and then dropping the reps while increasing the weight up until you get up to like that 1-2 rep max, and then working your way back down. So there's fun ways that we can do that. If you're at a plateau, there's lots of things that we can do, like putting push pins across and then pushing directly into the bar with something you can't move. It's called an isometric. If you're pushing isometrically, you can actually produce up to 15 to 20% more strength in that single plane. But the caveat to that is when you're pushing, wherever that is, let's say it's a bench press, wherever you have those pins set for that push, you're only going to get strength within 15 degrees of whatever that pattern of movement is. So it's not like you're moving the bar through a full range of motion, but you can generate a shit ton of force at that one spot within 15 degrees.
So for general people that want to look at a rep range, they're doing straight sets, or supersets. What kind of rep range would you suggest that they look at just for general strength?
If I'm just talking strength, if I want to be able to eventually push more weight on that bar, 5 to 6 sets of 5 to 6 reps.
There you go.
If you're ready to make a change in your life, step into the best version of you, check out our Iron Self Transformation Program. Find more info on our website, www.ironbodycoach.com.
Okay, now if you're looking for hypertrophy, which is a little bit different than strength. So hypertrophy is the size in the muscle, and I mean
creating more muscle fiber.
We will talk about aesthetics in a second, but hypertrophy I think needs to come into strength because you can't just do like a periodization of just strength followed by more just strength. You need to change up the mechanism again on how we are training here. So we've done a period of strength. We want to do some hypertrophy. What rep range are we looking at for hypertrophy?
So for hypertrophy, it's totally it can be subjective because everybody's body responds differently to these. And the same thing goes for strength. For some people, 5 sets is fucking near impossible because they have too much of the type 1 muscle fibers for them to be able to push heavy weights through these 5 to 6 sets. So you need to know your body a little bit to begin with. If you are primarily type 1, think like a distance runner. If we do a set of 5 or 6 by 5 or 6, So if we're doing those lower weights, higher reps, and you are a type 1 muscle fiber person, you're going to have a fuck of a time doing it. So just keep in mind, if you are a distance runner, then your strength training turns almost to like the lower end of hypertrophy. So then we're looking at that 8 to 12 rep range, and you're going to get the same benefits as someone that has more type 2 muscle fiber that's doing 5 to 6 reps. So I just want to throw that out there. Now, hypertrophy generally, rep ranges can range anywhere from 8 to 12 kind of deal for like your classic bro style workout, and then you can work all the way up to like sets of 15 to 20. Again, very dependent on your body type, your muscle fibers, and your goals.
Perfect. So now we look at power, because we talked about strength, and I think that people get like powerlifting and power training for power a little bit mixed up. So I want you to kind of differentiate that for the audience.
Powerlifting from training for power?
Yeah.
Okay, well, training power, I'm going to go sport. This is what I love, is like training people to become the most explosive, powerful athlete that you can. Is training in a similar motion to how you are going to perform. So these are your sprints, these are your jumps, these are that dynamic start. So think like starting in a push-up position, launching up into a straight dash, something like that. Builds that power, right? So do these heavy lifts. So again, if we're doing like box squats, are great for power production because it loads that whole posterior chain and you're really focusing on that acceleration off of the box. Compensatory acceleration training. So if we're looking at like cat squats where you're like lowering down nice and slow and then you're exploding up onto your toes, that builds that power. That builds that true ability to start quickly. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, so that's the difference between strength and power. The ability to start quickly versus the ability to move something through space and time.
Yeah. So strength is quite literally just doesn't, regardless of the time you are moving a weight from point A to point B, doesn't matter how long you take to get there. That is the definition of strength. The definition of power is the exact same thing, but you're doing it fucking fast.
There we go. Okay, so then powerlifting, because we usually look at powerlifting as like a 1 rep max kind of situation. So how does that now play into strength? Because these people that are powerlifters are fucking strong. A lot of them are very, very fucking strong. So let's talk about that.
So there we start to get it's like the hybrid. It's a mixture because powerlifting, again, they focus on being able to move that weight one time. So we're doing one squat, we're doing one bench press, we're doing one deadlift, whatever that looks like, but we're just moving the bar one time. So you do need that explosive power to be able to get it off the floor. A lot of it comes down to technique. If you've ever watched a power lifter doing a deadlift, they preload their hamstrings. So you'll actually see them and it's like a kind of a squat movement and then a quick jerk and then down and then they do their pull. So they're preloading, they're getting that
initial contraction.
Yeah, they're getting that start from their legs before they even start the movement. So it's that pre-tense. So a lot of it comes down to form. And again, this is where you see when they're doing the bench press with that super arc back, right? And they're just bringing it down so it touches their chest, but their chest is so elevated. So again, it comes down to a lot of technique for them. And then the crazy thing is, and a lot of people don't realize this, if you look at a power lifter's triceps, let's say, for the ones that are doing their bench press, their triceps are fucking huge because they train their accessory muscles so well so that when they come down, their chest is in a lengthened position when they're doing that bench, but because there's so much thoracic mobility there, they are able to just lock out essentially with their elbows because they only bring their hands down far enough so it touches their chest, but with how accentuated that chest is, it's almost just a lockout to finish their bench press. So again, it comes down to a lot of technique for powerlifting.
So when we are training for power, what kind of a rep range do we want to be looking at, or what kind of, like, I guess, a periodization?
Well, this is a very loaded question. It depends on your muscle fiber type. It depends on your, like, where you're starting and your muscle memory to begin with. Are you somebody that is lifting brand new, that's going to get these newbie gains, or are you somebody who is a seasoned lifter that is trying for that 1% better? Because the answer is it depends, right? This is what I was saying at the start. So we could say, yep, we want to be able to train you up, so we are going to work on nothing but 1 rep maxes, which is great. You need to be able to work towards that. But it's not a sustainable training form to be just shooting for 1 rep maxes every time you're in the gym, like Kayla was saying. You need to be able to switch the intensity in these workouts, or else you're going to burn yourself out along the way. So you can have your heavy days maybe once, twice a week, where you're lifting for these low reps, high weights. Again, working your way up safely, figuring out where you're feeling that day, and it's all dependent on how you're feeling that day because every single day in the gym is different. and then starting to work our weights up. So this is what I call my running sets. For anybody who's ever been in the gym with me, when I'm grunting away beside you, my running sets normally start, like for squat, I will start at 135 on the bar, and then I'll just basically take it up by however much I want every time. So it's like 135, then I'll go 185, and then 225, and then you just start working your weights up until you're at close to your max.
Yeah, so essentially, you're never really training for just strength or just power. It's kind of like we have to keep keep mixing it up so that our body adapts, and then the power also comes into, well, what kind of power are you looking for? What kind of sport is this? Like, there's just so much that kind of goes into it.
Well, one of the favorite things I have, again, I love working with hockey players. I work with a fair amount of hockey players, and what I notice is a lot of them want to be able to do those heavy one rep lifts, and they're like, this will make me so much faster on the ice. And it is true. Your strength is your base of your speed. 100%. There's no two ways about that. If you can only squat 135, you will not be the fastest guy on the ice in the NHL. It's not going to happen. So the strength is part of it. But having a way to transfer that strength onto whatever you're doing, that's sport specific. This is where football, hockey, baseball, running, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever you're doing, you need to have that explosive strength to be able to carry over to whatever you're playing. But then you need to start looking at the overall energy system that's required for your sport, because these 1 rep maxes, for people that need to be able to have that anaerobic system fully firing during their practice, during their game, it's not going to serve them as well. We need to be able to condition them now for this anaerobic sport where they're going to be going hard and then resting, going hard and resting. Soccer, we need to be able to train your aerobic system, so you're going to be running all fucking day. There's a lot that comes into play with this.
Yeah, we'll jump into conditioning on the next episode. I know this is something you're super passionate about.
What?
So let's move into aesthetics. So training for aesthetics, strength training for aesthetics specifically.
To go on stage.
Yeah. Welcome to my world. Now, when we are looking for aesthetics, this is the people that come to me that say, I want to lose weight, I want to tone up, I want to tighten this. Like,
spot reduction isn't a thing. I want to start with that.
That's where I was going to start too. Spot reduction isn't a thing. I can't change one spot on your body.
The amount of people that come to us and say, I need my abs to show up now. And we're
I want my bat wings gone.
Yeah, can you get rid of my ass? I just want it to be this nice toned booty.
So there's a couple things here. First of all, hormones and stress play a huge role in how our body stores fat.
If you have like a lot of belly fat, like that fat in like here,
visceral fat.
That visceral fat
that packs around your
lower
organs.
your stress levels, sweetheart. This is where
lower your stress levels and lower your processed foods.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that
hormonal
are going to really create that visceral fat, that fat that's harder to touch and it packs around the organs. If you are a person that is highly, highly stressed, you'll see lots more fat deposits on the backs of your arms and your upper back.
And your thighs.
Well, thighs is normal for females, and specifically, like, that has nothing to do with stress. That has everything to do with estrogen and fat storage. If you are menopausal or postmenopausal, you will see more what we call male pattern fat weight gain, and that's usually around the stomach. And that's just because it's easier for our body to pack on weight around that region, especially once our hormones dip a little lower, I'm going to say.
A lot of that comes back to the stress too, though, because when our body's in a stress state, this is where all of your vital organs are. So where's your body going to pack fat to keep you safe? All around your vital organs.
Now, training for aesthetics specifically, you need to look at what kind of changes do you want to look at. So most of the time, our eyes love a beautiful hourglass, so we want those broad shoulders. The hips are about as wide as the shoulders, narrow abdomen. That's usually what is aesthetically pleasing to our eyes, right? Our eyes like that symmetry that kind of balances itself out. So if that's the case, then we need to train through our back, our chest, and our shoulders to broaden through the shoulders.
And the booty.
And then you want to train your glutes to tighten through your booty, to tighten those saddlebag region, I'm going to say, because we want the muscles to be tighter and stronger. We are building muscle under the fat, and then we have to lose fat to create the aesthetics of seeing that muscle. Yeah. There is that piece to it. Now, when we're looking at rep ranges and those kinds of things for training body parts, it comes back to, it depends, because it depends on your muscle fibers. It depends on how your body responds. I know for me to train my shoulders grow at 15 to 20 reps. They don't really like the 8 to 12 rep range. I can do the 8 to 12, but I don't get the adaptation that I'm looking for in the hypertrophy and building out that muscle specifically. So for me, my body needs 15 to 20. I have many clients whose body changes really nicely in the 8 to 12 rep range, or the 5 to 8 rep range, even in that strength training, but it's person's dependent, really. I mean, the same thing comes from lower body. Like, do you have more type 1 or type 2 muscle fibers? What does your body respond to? And my lower body responds better to that 8 to 12 rep range. My brain also enjoys the 8 to 12 rep range, because holy hell, once you get over
You don't
12,
have to squat 15
you're
times.
like, oh my God. But it's part of it's brain, part of it's what does my body actually respond to, and you have to play with that. You have to know, can I feel my triceps engage in a tricep extension? Can I feel my glutes engage in a hip thrust? If I'm not, then I need to maybe change the exercise. I don't want to say like, I pull it back, I guess, is the easier way of saying this, because you want to start with a foundation of feeling the muscle, creating that mind-body connection, that muscle-mind connection, before you go any further with it.
Yep, 100%. There are too many people that try and lift weights that are too heavy for them, and they don't feel it in the muscles that they need to be. Your body, and I've said this so many times, I'm a broken record, your body's a beautiful machine. It will figure out how to move that weight. But if you're not feeling it where you're supposed to be feeling it, lessen that weight until you can actually feel that connection with your muscle before you start pushing heavy weights.
That's usually how people injure themselves. Oh, my back, I feel this in this region, I feel this in that region. And it's like, no. You need to go back to the beginning. You need to train your body how to move. I mean, it's really unfortunate that we're born and our body doesn't naturally know how to move. Like, the amount of times I've had our kids come and tap me on the back of the shoulder to try and create that mind-muscle connection with my left shoulder, because it doesn't like to fire as nicely, or the amount of times where I'm like poking a client in a specific body part to try and say, hey, we're going to get this muscle firing. Are you feeling this here? No, we're not feeling this here. I know you can do this weight. Let's lower the weight and let's see if we can really bring that awareness to this muscle. And I'll touch or hold the muscle to start to create that awareness. If we're doing like kickbacks, even myself, I hold my butt when I'm doing a kickback. Why? Because I want to make sure that my glute is firing and that I'm not using my back or my hamstrings to do it. So really taking it back and stepping away from that ego sometimes can be exactly what you need to get the aesthetic results that you're looking for.
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you said right at the start, and I just want to throw that right back out there one more time, is that if you are lifting for aesthetics, a lot of it comes back to what you're putting in your face hole. So be careful with what you're eating. Eat smart, because this is something that we've already touched on last week. So go back and listen to last week about fueling yourself for your goals, and then you can listen to today, and then we can talk about your rep ranges and really figuring out what you want to do with your body.
The other thing I want to touch on when it comes to aesthetics, and I love that you touched on food a little bit, because these all are encompassing. I know this is a 3-part series, but this is all encompassing, is that if we are looking for strength and hypertrophy, like we want to build muscle, then we need to be eating at maintenance or above maintenance in a surplus. You can get stronger in a calorie deficit, but you're not going to build that hypertrophy, that muscle building, okay? You're not going to gain a ton of muscle very fast unless you're at or above maintenance for calories. Now, if you're training in a calorie deficit, you will still get strength gains, but you may not see the muscle definition that you are looking for. And that is something that I need to be very, very clear with.
You won't get the appreciable gains, is what I like to call them. You won't see the mass coming on. You'll get body recomposition.
Yes.
So 2 different things. Gaining mass means you are eating in a calorie surplus, you're working out, your body is putting on lean mass, you are gaining muscle. Body recomposition means you're eating in a calorie deficit, you're still putting on muscle, but what we're doing is we are losing body fat while gaining a little bit of lean mass. But again, it's kind of that.
It's really negligible amounts of lean mass that you're gaining in a calorie deficit. So anyways, had to put that out there. So the last thing that we need to touch on in regards to strength results and moving our body is mobility and general mobility, because most of us don't stretch enough. I'm guilty of this for myself and with clients where we go through a workout and we don't have enough time at the end of our workout to stretch more than 5 minutes together, or I sometimes don't always take the time to stretch right after my workout. I'll leave that until the evening. So stretching, mobility work is really critical, and I need to kind of really touch on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mobility, where to start, right? There's so much that you could say about it. So I think a beautiful place to start for the general population that doesn't have a freaking clue about moving and stretching to begin with, yoga is a beautiful thing. Do some beginner's yoga. They will take you through a full range of motion in a safe way where we can experience these stretches while being guided through specific postures to help with them. So for anybody that doesn't have an idea about stretching, yoga is a beautiful place to start because you are guided through it.
And if you're dealing with mobility or balance issues and you're saying, I can't get down and up from the floor to do yoga, there's things like chair yoga or Tai Chi that can be really great to help keep that general mobility and help move us through a safe range of motion in what is safe for our body.
Yep.
Now, there's tons of stretching programs out there or stretching videos. You can check out our YouTube channel. We have a ton of yoga videos, anything from chair yoga to trauma-informed yoga. We have some stretching videos on there as well. So head on over there to our YouTube channel. Check those out if you need help with stretching and mobility, because this is going to be what's going to keep your gains coming. It's going to help you increase your gains long term.
Yeah, and I do want to piggyback on the stretching. So whenever I think of stretching, right, I figure, and probably most people listening here are like, after you're done your workout, you stretch, you know, get some water, whatever that is. But most people see it as an after the workout thing. Great. Static stretching, 100% after your workout. Now, what do you do before your workout to warm up? Because a lot of people I see will jump on a treadmill, stand there and walk for 10 minutes on a treadmill and then go straight to bench pressing. I'm like, you did not involve, your warm-up didn't involve any of the muscle groups that you are currently about to use, right? So having a warm-up routine is almost as important, possibly even more important, than having a stretch routine at the end. You need to warm up your muscles before you start to work them. So warming up your muscles does not mean you're holding a static stretch. We are not holding stretches in one spot, static stretching before our workout. When we are warming up the muscles, we want to get these muscles going through a full range of motion, whatever that range of motion looks like, to get all of the synovial fluid, all of the fluid in your joints to start moving around there. You want to be able to warm the body up where you're going to be moving. If you are going to be doing chest, start doing some wall push-ups. You know, do something where you're involving your chest. Give yourself some bear hugs, arms out to the side, bear hugs, right? So moving the muscle groups that you're going to be using through that full range of motion before you start working those muscles.
So dynamic stretching versus static stretching. Dynamic stretching, stretching where you're moving, and static stretching is stretching where you're holding. Static is done post-workout. Dynamic is done pre-workout. And like Mike said, pre-workout, you want to move through a full range of motion through all of the major muscle groups and joints that you're going to be using.
Mm-hmm. So if you are playing a sport, warm up your entire fucking body. It drives me nuts when I see all of my hockey players out there on the ice with one leg out, stretching the groin. You're doing a static stretch before a game. If you static stretch before you are looking for performance, you reduce your performance by 15 to 20%. 15 to 20%. That is huge. For anybody who is playing in a competitive sport, 15 to 20% is the difference between you winning the game and you losing the game. 15 to 20%.
Just putting that out there, hey? No big deal. No big deal. So you should always stretch your body too in a if you're stretching static, when you are warm. So Mike said most people attribute this to post-workout. This could be done post-shower, post-hot tub. This could be done anything where your body is warm. You could also just do a quick full range of motion movement with some breathing in order to get your body warm to create some stretching. But don't stretch your muscles when they're tight and cold. So if you take an elastic band and you throw it in the fridge or the freezer and you take that elastic band out and you pull it, that elastic band is more likely to break. Yeah, that's the same thing with your muscles. But if you were to take that elastic band and you roll it between your hands to warm it up and then stretch it, you're going to get way more stretch out of it. Also, when you are practicing some stretching, only going to a point where you feel the stretch. We have two receptors in our muscles. One tells your muscle if there's too much pressure on it, and the other one tells it if there's too much length or stretch on it. And in both scenarios, if there's too much of either, then the muscle actually contracts versus relaxing. So I always say this to our kids, I always say this to clients, but I want to say this to you guys, even if you're not a client of ours, is that there is nothing special about touching your toes. Okay, so
body position first. That's what I always say in this one, because everybody will like turn awkwardly and like reach for their foot, and they're like, I can get my toe, and I'm like, your chest is rounded forward. You're not feeling the stretch in your hamstring. Like, turn your body so it's facing over that leg. Keep that chest high. Now lean forward. Ooh, you only went 2 inches and your leg feels like it's about to fall off.
So there's nothing special about touching your toes. Make sure that you are just going to a point where you feel that stretch, where you're getting the benefits of the stretch. Breathe while you're there. Imagine your muscles relaxing, like creating that mind-body connection. And then holding for anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, and always stretching the tight side twice, because even in yoga, we stretch each side once and it's supposed to create this balance. But if you've got a tighter side, it doesn't actually create balance. It keeps that imbalance. So if we go tight side, less tight side, then we're starting to allow that tight side the ability to find balance. And sometimes our tight side is actually tighter because it's compensating for the other side.
Weaker muscle.
Yeah. So we just want to make sure that we are not always stretching each side equally in order to see the gains that we want.
Awesome.
So hopefully you guys got something from this episode today on strength, results, and moving our body. We kind of touched on everything from strength to power to aesthetics to general health, mobility. If you like this episode, share it with a friend, a family member, or someone that you feel that could benefit from this.
Guys, have an amazing day. And remember, if you are plateauing on your lifts, give yourself a little bit of a break and then go back at it hard. And if you're still plateauing, reach out. We'll give you a hand.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye for now.
Have a great day, guys.